Hey, hi, how you doing? This is the Gamertron and welcome back to the Gamertron Show. Now, let me share with you my thoughts on Tom Clancy's The Division so far. Now, those of you who watched my The Division beta review know that I really enjoyed the beta and it made me anticipate and look forward to the full game. Now, I finally have the full game, and not just the full game, the gold edition that comes with the season pass and extra content. So I'm gonna have access to all future DLC and updates of The Division. All of this gifted to me by a fan whom I thank very much. But moving on to the game itself, I will say right off the bat, I really like The Division. While I wouldn't say it's anything special, I wouldn't say this is a revolutionary game, and I wouldn't even call it a must-buy. However, I would call it a solid, mechanically sound, well-made, for the most part, considering it's an Ubisoft game, enjoyable, and slightly addicting RPG, looter, third-person, cover-based shooter. Now, these are just my thoughts, feelings, and opinions after playing almost a dozen hours of the game. I have not reached max level, I have not beat all the main story quests, side quests, and I've only spent a bit of time in the PvP portion of the game, the Dark Zone. So let me tell you about what I like about the game so far. Well, the gameplay, gunplay, and third-person shooting itself. It's responsive, easy to get into. Cover in this game works really well. Very dynamic with the cover system in this game, whether it be the taking and usage of cover itself, or moving from cover to cover. Very dynamic, very responsive, and you definitely have to use it effectively when in combat. How and when you use cover can mean life and death in a combat scenario. When it comes to the shooting and gunplay, it, like the cover system, is very solid and responsive. Weapons look, sound, and feel very nice, especially if you're a gun nut, if you're into modern military weaponry, which admittedly I have a soft spot for. I think you'll appreciate the authenticity of these weapons. And the varied amount of them too. Jesus Christ, this game has a lot of guns. So many different variations of SMG, assault rifle, shotgun, sniper rifle. This game has a lot of guns. All it's missing is some miniguns and RPGs and we're good to go. However, to make up for the lack of heavy weaponry, it is more than made up for in what is quite frankly and quite possibly one of, if not my favorite aspect of The Division, and that's your special abilities. Now, I haven't gotten to use all the special abilities so far, but the ones that I have gone to use have been very versatile, effective, and fun to play with and upgrade. I'm currently addicted to just upgrading the different stations. The different sections of my base of operations, basically my hub world, as you would call in any other RPG. You have 3 different wings: medical, tech, and security, which feed into your different ability trees, medical, tech, and security. And the more side missions you complete for each wing, for each category, you gain points, and those points you can spend on getting new upgrades, perks, and talents, which is exactly what they sound like, other buffs and bonuses like you would find in other RPGs. But what is the absolute best is upgrading your abilities and unlocking new variations for your abilities. So basically, one ability can be 5 different abilities. I just love that variation and versatility, and it changes up the combat so much in how you approach combat. Like if you focus on tech abilities, depending on which variations of the tech abilities you take, you can be more of a damage dealer or support type character. And depending on what ability and ability variation you take in, say, the medical tree, you can play as like a team healer, a support, or a tank, soaking up enemy fire while dishing it out. I really like the different special abilities of The Division. They really add so much more to the very basic but solid third-person shooting. So the game's got solid mechanics, a solid cover system, shooting, really fun abilities. However, since this is a shooter, you're going to be shooting stuff. And the stuff in this case just happens to be a variety of crazy demented criminals. There are 4 different enemy factions in The Division: Rioters, Rikers, Cleaners, and the Last Man Battalion. I've only fought 3 of the 4 enemy factions so far. I haven't fought the Last Man Battalion yet. And I have to say, even though they're these generic criminal human enemies, they're not like the more fantastical and varied enemies in, say, other fantasy or sci-fi RPGs. I actually found them very challenging and fun to fight, and satisfying to kill, but I mostly found them satisfying to kill because of what absolutely despicable douchebags these different enemy factions are. The Rioters are a bunch of brutal, disrespectful punks. The Rikers are merciless, sadistic killers. And the Cleaners, The cleaners are all types of crazy, acting like the act of setting people on fire is them just doing their job, talking about how they have to effectively sanitize the area. Out of all the enemy factions so far, I think the cleaners are also the funnest to fight and most satisfying to kill because of how psychopathic they are. And how blowing up those explosive gas cans on their backs, like, never gets old. Seeing cleaners get blown up because of their own gas tanks on their backs, just endlessly satisfying. However, when it comes down to it, this is more than just a shooter. This is an RPG, and how do the RPG mechanics handle? Now, I've already talked about, like, the abilities, perks and talents, bonuses, that sort of thing, how there's story missions and side missions and stuff like that. However, on top of that, The Division is really an RPG to its core. You're going to be spending a lot of time in this game looking at stats, looking at DPS. How can you maximize and minimize certain stats? What type of gear you want to bring to build the type of character you want to build? Do you want to build a more tanky character, and you want to put on armor that's going to give you more health? You want to have more DPS, you want to have better range or accuracy, you may have to sacrifice one piece of gear for another. Depending on what gear you loot and collect and equipped is going to determine how you build your character or how you want to build your character. This is a gear-based game. You want to get into the higher levels? You want to level up? You're going to need the appropriate gear to do so, which I gotta admit is quite addicting. It's addicting in the sense like in other RPG looter shooters like Borderlands. I can even draw some comparisons to Warframe. And this other third-person looter shooter MMO I've recently started playing, Defiance. There's that addiction of getting that weapon, or that piece of gear, or that resource so you can accomplish some personal goal. However, to do that, that does require grinding. But I am very happy to report that all the story missions and all the side missions are replayable. Thank God. I can't tell you how irritating it is in any game to not be able to replay shit, and the only way to replay shit is to start the game all the way from the beginning. So the fact that all of the Division's story missions and side missions are replayable, that's a big plus for me. Now, before we get into the negatives, the stuff I don't really like so far, one last positive I'd have to give the game is its world building and overall its visuals and graphics. This is a damn fine looking game. Running this game on ultra settings on my PC, textures and lighting look phenomenal. Especially when it comes to the environments. The environments in The Division look gorgeous. They are jam-packed with detail and props, little details here and there when it comes to the architecture and other environmental traits. Now, I have to admit, I do have a personal connection to the location in The Division, New York City. I adore New York City. It is one of my most absolute favorite places to go vacation and travel to. I love New York City. I absolutely adore New York City. And I've played quite a few video games that take place in New York City, but The Division, I gotta tell you, man, it was scary. It was scary at times. Because I was playing the game and recognizing streets in Manhattan. I was having deja vu when I was going around exploring certain parts of the city, because it looked like this messed up and dark version of this place I have familiarity with. So I really got to give that to Division. The environments, the atmosphere, the visuals, it's stellar. It's stellar, especially if you're into post-apocalypse-like settings, or just settings set in a city in general. You will like what The Division has to offer in that regard. God, I really do love the environment in this game. Really well done. Now let's get into the negatives and some of the gripes I have with this game. Ubisoft, for the love of God, get some good servers. Get good at your servers. Get good at your online. Uplay is terrible when it comes to matchmaking and server stability. Even though some of their other more recent games like Rainbow Six Siege, I love Rainbow Six Siege, but even I have to admit, the Uplay servers hinder that multiplayer-only game a lot, and it's the same with The Division. As soon as I got into the Dark Zone, a few minutes in, I was experiencing lag when I had not experienced any lag throughout my entire play session when I was playing solo PvE. I'm very apprehensive about going more into the Dark Zone. Even though I enjoyed my time in the Dark Zone, it was hampered where there were just moments where minutes would go by of just lag and stuttering that didn't happen when I was in the PvE zones. I really want to do the PvP of this game, but I'm really deterred from it by the by the lag, by the instability of Ubisoft servers. However, the PvP portion of The Division is hampered in more ways than just the online stability. The Dark Zone has so many problems. From NPCs not appearing, to players not appearing, the Dark Zone basically just being this empty wasteland, to high-level enemies from high-level areas of the Dark Zone for some reason showing up in low-level areas of the Dark Zone, like they just wandered into the low-level areas somehow. I would think they have like borders or something like that to keep the high-level NPCs from wandering into the lower levels, but I ran into high-level NPCs in the lower level of the Dark Zone. I only played the Dark Zone of The Division for a few hours, and I just encountered so many bizarre issues. Players not appearing, NPCs not appearing, high-level NPCs wandering into low-level areas, like, so much crazy stuff in the Dark Zone. The Dark Zone is literally freaking Looney Tunes Wonderland. Every time you go into the Dark Zone, you never know what you're gonna get. I think the Dark Zone, the PvP portion of this game, is just, it's way too crazy and way too random. Like, you never know what experience you're going to get. Is it going to be frustrating and filled with lag? Rogue players griefing at the entrances to the PvP areas? Everyone going rogue or nobody going rogue? I see how some players could enjoy the absolute randomness of the Dark Zone, but for me, when I play a game, I like to know what I'm going to get out of it. Like, once I play it and get used to it, I have an expectation of it. When it comes to the Dark Zone, I have no idea what to expect. I have no idea whether I'm going to have a good time or not. However, that's not the only issue with the game as well. While I do enjoy the PvE portion of the game, I really like the PvE portion of the game and exploring the world and all that stuff, that has its own issues too. Boss battles are lame. They are literally just recycled enemies with very large health bars. I haven't encountered any unique bosses so far. They've literally just been rehashed enemies with bigger health bars. That's pretty lazy, in my opinion. Another gripe I have is that this open world may be either too empty or too big, because there are moments in the game where I'm walking down the same city streets, and even though I'm admiring the environment, it's still a good-looking game, there's just not much to do. Like in another open world game like Fallout 4, there's always something to do and see, collect, or pick up around every corner. You can go any direction in Fallout 4 and find something new. With The Division, there are a few hidden collectibles here and there, but besides that, there's not much else to do in the open world besides just walk around and admire it. There are no random encounters, no enemies ambushing you. You may see NPC civilians and animals walking around, but that's about it. I just wish there was more to do in the empty world, because there were moments where I felt like I was wasting my time almost. And one final gripe I have with the game so far: the prices at the vendors. It's ridiculous. These vendors want ridiculous amounts of money for even the lowest level gear. Oh, I'm sorry, you want some new weapons or new gear? You're gonna have to pay me over $2,000 to $3,000. And the best way I find so far to earn money in the game is to replay story missions on hard difficulty, so I kind of feel like I'm being forced to grind and farm story missions at hard difficulty if I want to buy anything at the damn vendors. I wish they would drop the prices at the vendors just a bit, so I could actually buy something every once in a while. Alright then, so those are my thoughts so far on Tom Clancy's The Division. Keep in mind, I have not completed the game yet, and these are basically just my first impressions. This is not my final opinion on the game. However, so far, I like the game. I enjoy The Division. I surprisingly really like it a lot. Even though it has some nagging issues that deter me and frustrate me, the overall core of the game I find enjoyable and, in a sense, addicting. However, admittedly, I do prefer more science fiction and fantasy settings when it comes to video games and shooters in general. I can get into and enjoy the modern military post-apocalypse setting of The Division just fine. It's not my preferred cup of tea, but it's a cup of tea I will enjoy nonetheless. However, if you're not the biggest fan of military shooters, or cover-based shooters, or RPG games that require grinding for new gear, you may not entirely like The Division. However, again, me personally, I'm genuinely surprised myself. I genuinely really like The Division, and I look forward to all of its upcoming content and completing the base game I have so far. What is it with Ubisoft games? They release games that don't interest me, but once I play them, I love them. Who wants to bet? For Honor, another upcoming Ubisoft game I'm not interested in, as soon as I play that, I'm gonna love that too. How does Ubisoft do it? What is it with Ubisoft games and me? I don't know. Anyways, that's been a video. Let me know your thoughts, feelings, and opinions in the comment section below. Leave a like if you liked the video. And if you want to support me and my channel, please consider subscribing and sharing the video on social media, Twitter and Facebook, and maybe becoming a patron on my Patreon. Anyways, that's been a video, and I will see you all later.